Welcome to Zero Gravity's podcast. Today I have my good friend David, a repeat guest, and he is the maintainer of Morpheus. Maybe you guys have used the project or at least heard me yapping about it. So for people that are unfamiliar, David, tell them what the heck is Morpheus and what are you guys hoping to do there?
So Morpheus is doing for smart agents basically what Ethereum did for dApps, right? It creates the infrastructure layer. So just the way Ethereum created the EVM and Solidity and all that tool set that you need to build smart contracts, effectively Morpheus is doing that for smart agents. So here's the compute you need, here's the capital, here's the coding tools. So think of it as a marketplace or an aggregator or infrastructure for smart agents. It's not necessarily building the agents themselves. There's lots of places you can build an agent these days. It's like, where do you monetize it? Where do you get inference for the model? Like all those tools, that's what Morpheus is really about.
Yeah, and let's actually go back for people that maybe are unfamiliar with building agents or even just like what goes into the construction of an agent and why somebody would need Morpheus. Talk to them a little bit about like we'll call it the agent construction lifecycle.
Sure. So if you want to play around with it, there's just a new decentralized AI forge that launched today at moragents.org, moreagents.org. And you can basically drag and drop now. Hey, I want this model. I want it to use llama, right, for the chat. I want it to store the information here. And with no code whatsoever, you can create an agent with a click of a button. And let's say you want to use it for chat on your website. Let's say you want it to do something simple in Web3, like send a payment. Like all those tools are coming together. And so most people probably already have experience with something like ChatGPT, right? And in the decentralized context, it's about doing that on open source models with distributed compute and have it be completely permissionless, right? So we're not talking about going through companies. We're talking about using crypto protocols. And so the big breakout killer app has been Venice, right? They launched initially on Morpheus. They're one of the subnets in the builder category, and they've just taken off. I think they've recently crossed almost 1 million users and like 100,000 daily actives. Like, turns out this idea of free AI is pretty popular. So like that's what's happening. So if you wanted a censorship resistant, private, personal AI, Venice, Morpheus, that's what people are building.
And then let's take the Venice example because people might not be familiar with like, okay, well, like how would I use Morpheus? So let's talk about like the use case of Venice. Like how did they end up using Morpheus in order to launch?
So the way they bootstrapped was Morpheus is basically this curated community of people that are really passionate about decentralized AI, right? So the history is, the white paper came out in September of 23. People are like, yes, we've got to have an alternative to these corporate AIs. Like I want a personal AI that's responsible to me, not some company or government, right? And so that idea really took off. And so I think it was June in 24, Venice came out and they're like, yes, anybody that stakes some more tokens towards us, we're going to give them a free pro account. So Morpheus sort of helped incubate, test, really make robust the whole Venice app when it first came out. Yeah, and then it kind of like took off. They did a big airdrop recently to the Morpheus community and other decentralized AI projects. And yeah, I mean, they're really off to the races as far as like having a beautiful web app that you don't need any technical experience. You don't have to know anything about Web3 or smart contracts. You can just show up, use free AI, and you notice how much better it is. And it's not like, giving you sermons or treating you like a child with its responses. Like they ripped all of that crap out, and you can set your own system prompt and all the rest. So yeah, I mean, big credit to Eric Voorhees and Tina and the whole team over at Venice for what they've built. But basically, that came out of sort of this Morpheus community. And there's actually now like 75 builders on Morpheus creating agents and applications and front ends and everything you can imagine. So if people go to more.org, you can click on the dashboard and see all of the builders. And the protocols actually paid out over $1 million in rewards in just the first 30 days to the agent builders, right? These people creating all these subnets. So yeah, it's been pretty wild to see. Like, so if you remember back when the capital contracts launched, hundreds of millions of dollars have come in for people providing staked ETH, right? And then coding went live, compute went live, and then finally builders. So like the whole Morpheus platform now is live, and that flywheel is really going.
Yeah, I gotta say, one of the most interesting aspects of Morpheus is the community. So, walk people through how the community works. Because I remember talking to you at one point, you're like, well, there's no core contributors. There's, people actually, Morpheus buys code from the builders itself. So, talk to them a little bit about like how the community itself, like how Morpheus functions.
Well, you can really think of it as four marketplaces, right? So everybody's familiar with the marketplace for capital. Hey, I'm contributing my staked ETH. It's donating the yield into the protocol. It's an open competition, right? Anybody can show up with capital and they're getting a proportion of the rewards. But the same is true for compute, right? You show up with some GPUs, you're competing to earn more. You show up with some code, like you're saying, and hey, I'm gonna, code up this improvement to the protocol. You're basically selling that code to one of the maintainers, and there's like a dozen maintainers across all the GitHub repos. And they're acting as the buyers and the coders acting the sellers. Again, it's a marketplace. Like anybody can contribute value and get rewarded for it, right? And then finally, you've got the code, the compute, the capital, and the builders, right? Builders are competing for people to stake more towards them. And the more they have staked towards them, the greater their rewards from the protocol, right? So I really like that dynamic because it creates this competition, right? Where anybody can come with a different type of value and contribute it. And honestly, I haven't seen a project since, I don't know, maybe Ethereum in 2014, 2015, that's been as serious about rewarding developers and not just capital, not just compute, right? Normally, we're proof of stake and we give all the rewards to our stakers, or we're proof of work and we give all the rewards to the miners. I've seen very few projects that sort of have like this holy trinity of capital, compute, and builders, right? Capital, compute, and engineers. And people forget, like Vitalik airdropped ETH to every single engineer that added code before the Genesis block, right? It wasn't just the ICO. It wasn't just, having proof of work. It was those hundreds of developers that built on top of Ethereum that made Ethereum what it became, right? So that's really cool to see. That's one of the things that attracted me when I first read the Morpheus white paper.
And why do you think other projects haven't necessarily replicated that system? Is it too difficult to manage, I guess, this three-sided marketplace like you're kind of describing, or maybe even a four-sided marketplace, if I'm getting the number right?
Well, I would say, it's a question of philosophy. People really compete based on philosophy, and they have fundamentally different views of, how things should be built. And the truth is, like you're saying, it's easier to just create a foundation and okay, we'll have a grant process. And mostly they're just giving the tokens to themselves instead of building a robust marketplace where like anybody can participate, because there's all these harder questions you have to think through. Like, okay, if it's a marketplace, like who gets to participate? How do I know somebody's not gaming the system? It really takes more effort to build a decentralized system, but the payoff is it scales, right? There have been 6,000 capital contributors to Morpheus. Like over $2 billion in staked ETH has gone through the contracts, people depositing and withdrawing. That yield is all flowed into the protocol without a treasury, without a foundation, without a pre-sale, without custody risk of holding somebody else's money. It's all done in the smart contracts, right? Look at coders. There's not 10 or 20, over 300 code contributors have earned tens of millions of dollars of rewards in Morpheus. And so the speed at which you can move, if you get that right, is you can get audits and development done 10 times faster than any, slow DAO process where I'm making a proposal and waiting 60 days to see if the community votes for it. Like if I build something useful and it gets merged, I get rewarded. Like that's That's the entire process. So yeah, it's a philosophy. Like, I believe in free markets. I think competition gets you the best outcome. And I like the fact that Morpheus had no pre-mine. Like, every more had to be earned. It made it a fair system. Like, nobody has some big advantage over anybody else in the network. And those tend to be the projects that grow the biggest over time.
Yeah, I'm also happy you mentioned I'll call it the inefficiencies at times in the decentralized system, because I've contributed to some DAOs and I'm just like, how does anyone get anything done? And it almost like forces you back into centralized land. But you guys have come up with a very interesting, like, what do you call it, like an economic model or like marketplace based model?
Yeah, people in the Morpheus ecosystem refer to it as atomic governance. So it's up to the individual. Everything in Morpheus. You want to pick a particular model? Go for it. You want to pick a particular agent? You want to pick a particular code base? Because everything is modular, Morpheus is not a layer one, right? There's no consensus mechanism. You don't have to force people into a bunch of defaults. They can pick whatever they want or leave it, right? And so having that flexibility in an entirely modular system sort of gives you that freedom to leave those decisions to the individual. And so you look at every aspect, like, how are the rewards handed out to builders based on individual decisions of the stakers? You didn't have to get 51% of the people to vote for your subnet, like, or even understand what you're doing. If 5% like it, if 1% like it, that's cool. That proportion of the rewards goes to that builder, right? So you've got this organic market intelligence driven by the individual, not pushing things down into lowest common denominator votes. So if you think of governance on a spectrum, right? Let's say, the dictator is, the CEO in the company, and that's the centralized side. DAOs are somewhere in the middle, right? It's like, yeah, everybody has a voice, but like, you're also just taking votes, not necessarily effective for like building products and stuff like that. And then the extreme other side of the spectrum is every individual can make a choice for themselves. So the further you are to the right of the spectrum, typically the better outcomes you're going to get, because you're allowing for the maximum number of people to participate and add their value without any friction.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting paradigm, and because I actually come from, even though I'm in this very decentralized space, I come from the like, hey, you need one person that's calling the shots, and like maybe they ask for like a council of people, but like, man, I've been on some DAOs where it's just like, hey, it takes forever to get anything done. But
Well,
all that to be,
and that's what you're getting out of the atomic governance. You've got one person, usually the expert that did the most coding on that repo, acting as a judge, right? And saying, yes, this is a useful contribution, or no, it's not. It's not a committee, it's not a vote, it's that one person. And again, if you don't like their judgments, it's open source. You can just fork the repo
forget, yeah.
and make your own version, or somebody else can be a maintainer. But the truth is, it takes a lot of effort to be a maintainer. It's basically a full-time job to like understand all of the development that's going on. And so there's, a dozen or two maintainers Morpheus. There's hundreds of people that have contributed some code, and there's thousands of people that have added some capital. So you choose your own adventure.
Choose your own adventure. I like that. And then obviously we're here to talk a lot about agents. So I'm quite curious.
Yep.
And what is the thing that really excites you about like the agentic future? What do you think we're moving towards?
So one, this is how we get mass adoption of crypto, right? That was my insight in 23. I wrote a paper on smart agents back in the early side of 23 before Morpheus was proposed. It's like, hey, there's going to be this intersection between agents and needing to use crypto, right? And an individual's wallet is the best way to control their own personal AI, right? How do I know it's doing what it's supposed to? Because the human has the private key, and it's got to come to the human for approval of the transaction, right? So to give you a term, this is called intent-based AI. So I show up, I say what I want to do, the agent does some work, it comes back to me for final approval, right? And honestly, that's how I think we put humans at the heart of AI. And it goes back to not wanting your mind to be controlled or manipulated by some third party, right? I really, really want to control that myself. And that's how you're going to get the best outcomes and the most of the value flowing to the individual. So fast forward to 2025, people are sort of woken up to this idea of agents. You've seen the explosion of AI 16Z and virtuals, and Coinbase is releasing Agent Kit, and there's all these frameworks now for making an agent. But the vision of Morpheus remains the same, which is giving every individual a personal smart agent that they can use. And it's sort of just been a process of building all the tools that you need for that to be a reality. Like every agent needs compute to run, right? It doesn't run the model by itself. And so by having a reward for compute providers, you've got this resource that you can pull against. So if you stake your more tokens, you can access compute on the network, right? If you stake your more, you can support a builder creating an agent you want, right? Stake your more and get access to a pro account. Like these are all culminating together into what I've been terming recently super agents, right? This idea that you'll have one agent and it's going to represent you to the other agents. You don't want to interact with 1,000 different agents any more than you want to interact with 1,000 different service providers, right? You need a coordinator, a delegator, and that's really what the super agent is.
Yeah, I almost view it as like well, for people that haven't worked in business before, but like your chief operations officer. It's like your go-to executive assistant that is going to handle everything for you. So I remember talking with David from Lit Protocol, and he was saying it might be in the future that the app paradigm really falls apart, and that we'll
Mm.
have mostly agents that get selected. I'm quite curious about what you think the future is. Like, are we going to see less apps, or is this all going to be obfuscated from us under the hood, and we just have our operator agent that really takes care of everything? Like, how do you think things will play out?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think your super agent may be the last interface. Like people just want to talk with an agent. They just want to
Yeah.
talk directly to a machine in natural language, say what they want to do, and for it to do the work, right? Or even imply what to do and make it even simpler. We've been experimenting with an interface where you literally just take a picture. Oh, and it's a school syllabus. Like, okay, I'm going to go take all the dates, add them to your calendar, like all
Yeah.
the implied work and like mental load that people take on today. I think we're going to shift that over to agents. And so every website, every smart contract, every DApp and application is going to get wrapped into this interface where there's an agent talking with that smart contract. That smart contract may have its own agentic interface or API that it's interacting with. And so, yeah, I think a lot of that moves into the background, right?
Yeah.
Blockchain's mostly going to be the back end and AI is going to be the front end to that, right? So that's what's happening, but that's how you get billions of people to use it, right? It wasn't, you remember the early days of the web, people were very dismissive of the internet. Oh, that's for technical people, that's for engineers and professors. Nobody's ever going to use the internet. Like people would say that. I was like, no, you don't understand that the websites are going to get better. And then the breakout moment is when you got search engines and you didn't have to type in IP addresses or go through a directory. You just told it what you wanted, a sports website or whatever. It gave you the top results, and you clicked on the top result. Right? That's the flow that people want to get to. Is this super easy, non-technical workflow, and that's how we get mass adoption of crypto and Web3.
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. I don't know if you'll agree with this, but I personally, for my own self, am seeing the death of search engines as we speak. Like I almost never use Google. So like if you think about the Google paradigm,
Yep.
it was search on Google, click through a bunch of links, find your answer. It's like now we're just expecting answer to be served directly to us. It really is a
Yep.
fundamental shift, in my opinion, of like how the internet will look in the future.
Yeah. 100%. Like you're going to go to your super agent, say what you want. It's going to do the web search. You're never going to interact with the search engine anymore. It's going to give you the answer. And more importantly, I think the big thing for people to grok is that it'll take action for you. It won't just give you information. And that's the big advantage that Web3 has over the traditional players. It's 2025 and Google still doesn't have a Web3 wallet. Why is that? It's because they're a central entity. They would be a financial intermediary. They would have to do KYC and AML, all these expensive things they don't want to do. But the result is their agents can only give you information. Like, oh, here's the 10 steps for doing that. Like, I don't want to do the 10 steps. I want
Yeah.
the agent to do the 10 steps. And in order to accomplish that, it has to be able to pay people or at least pay other agents or pay applications, right? And for that, you need a wallet, right? And so I think that's the big shift is we're going from, oh, give me some information to no, 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 go do that task, right? And that's where crypto is really uniquely positioned.
Yeah, I gotta say, and I think you would probably suspect that from your perspective that there are probably more areas of product market fit. But when I think about product market fit for crypto, I think about like stablecoins, DeFi, probably DePIN, and AI. And AI largely because like yeah, AI can't go into Chase Bank and be like, I'd like one bank account, please. That probably have to have a funny
Yeah.
mustache and maybe a top hat, but we've yet to see that. So one thing I'm quite interested in is every time we really go down the AI rabbit hole, and I obviously love talking about this, is people start to get a little nervous. They're like, "Oh,
Mm.
AI with bank accounts, AI take all of our jobs." Like, what do you? Can you give us more of the like, maybe assuage people's fears of impending AI doom?
Oh, it's not that AI is going to take your job. It's that somebody else using AI is going to take your
It's going to
job.
take.
Right. And you could have said exactly the same thing about computers. Like, dude, if you don't learn how to use a computer, it's not the computer is going to take your job. It's the guy that knows how to use the computer is going to take your job, right? Because we're all about to get this incredible increase in brain power. So I wrote an article a few weeks ago defining brain power as a unit of measure as 3.33 tokens per second, basically equivalent to a human speaks 2.5 words a second. Like if you give it a unit of measure and you're like, oh, the models are pretty much as smart as an average person, great. If you just run out the number of chips that'll be produced this year, that means there'll be 50 trillion hours of AI brain power. And there's 7 trillion hours of organic brain power. So, you know, we're at that tipping point right now, right? Where you're about to get a 5-10x increase if you know how to use the tools to your organic brain power. And it's like getting a car and going from, oh, I can go 20 miles because that's as far as I can walk to, oh, I can drive 200 miles, no big deal, right? That's a huge shift. But it's a reason, again, that you're going to have a super agent for the same reason you have to have a phone if you want to be, economically relevant at this point. It's because those tools are going to be so helpful and so useful. The person that has them versus doesn't is going to be this moment. It's not going to be a long shift. It's not going to be 10 years. It's not going to be 5 years. We're talking about the next 12 to 24 months. Right.
Yeah.
And so it is really valuable to be ahead of that curve. We put up a website recently, mysuperagent.io, and you can play with a personal smart agent, and it uses all the open source models. And like, I'm going to be onboarding my friends and my family and all the people I know into tools like that that are built on decentralized AI because it's going to be that important. One, for like their productivity and work, but also think about protection. You saw the Bybit hack recently,
Oh
right?
yeah.
$1 billion got lost. Well, guess what? Within a week, somebody had built an agent that would have prevented that hack. All it had to do was watch the addresses and send you a warning if a transaction was proposed by somebody not you, by not your transaction. That simple thing, like you don't have the bandwidth to monitor everything in the world, but your agent does. And so people are going to realize real quick, oh, there's all these 150 IQ agents out there trying to trick me every day. I need my own agent to act as a firewall, to buffer me from that and protect me in the same way. So that's the solution. Like, we're not going to pause AI. That boat has sailed a long time ago.
Ship
Like,
has
the open
sailed.
source models they're out. The genie's out of the bottle, right? So the only solution at this point is to have a personal AI acting on your behalf as a fiduciary that has your best interests at its heart because it's connected to your wallet, your information. It's an extension of you, not somebody else. And Google's not going to build that. They're building an agent that benefits them, right? They're used to mining all your data and getting all the money, right? You one that actually reflects yourself.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, and I always come to this is like, how do you think we keep the agents aligned? Like, I think most people when they start being like, all right, there's a super intelligence with now, maybe we hold the private keys and things, but like, it's going to be smart. It might, in my opinion, probably will very likely develop some kind of consciousness. Like,
Very, very possible. So I've been writing about this for a long time. I put out an article in 2016 how blockchain will help us survive the coming of strong AI. And so I've been thinking about this that was 9 years ago, a long time. And I effectively have the same conclusion today, which is we want them to be economic actors. Like, why does a super smart person in the real world not take over the world? It's because they're limited by economic reality. They have, so much access to power and, raw materials and the ability to produce things. And if you have all those things, it's actually easier just to make a lot of money and have a really good life and not try to take over the world. I mean, that's the kind of funny thing to me is we're shoving in compute and power as fast as we can. Like, why does the AI want to stop this process and attack him? I'm not really clear, because we're benefiting, the growth of artificial intelligence. And so if you can align it to individual humans and their best outcome leads to more value flowing to their AI, and they're all competing, right? It's not like they're magically aligned. People sort of think of AI as like it's going to be one monolithic thing. There's going to be 100 million, 8 billion individual agents acting and competing in a marketplace with their own economic interests.
Yeah, it's definitely a very interesting reality. I do want to pivot as we have some limited time to hear a little bit more about what you guys have in the roadmap for Morpheus. Like, where do you think's coming? I know you're a contributor to it, so you're not the 100% person. So tell us a little bit about like what you think might be coming down the pipe for Morpheus.
Well, so builders went live, and that's really been huge, because it sort of unleashed all of the creative energies of everybody wanting to contribute and to do it in a fully permissionless way. I think a lot of what's been built the last year has still been in the back end, and this really is going to pull it into the front end, right? There's effectively now, mysuperagent.io. You don't have to download anything anymore. You don't have to, configure a node or mess with a router. You're talking about something in the website that you can just use with no technical knowledge, right? We talked about the AI Forge that literally went live this morning. Drag and drop, create an agent, no code required. Like, that's where we're getting to is just making these tools accessible to as many people as fast as possible.
Yeah, it's a super exciting future, and I couldn't believe how easy it is to make a lot of these agents. So finally, where can people learn a little bit more about you and get involved with the Morpheus project?
Sure. Just follow me on X, D Johnston, EC, Johnston with a T. And yeah, I mean, Morpheus AIs on X. There's a ton of content on there. If you really want to go into the rabbit hole, the Discord is super active with all the people building stuff in there. Go to mor.org for that's one of the community websites that Eric Voorhees donated to the community, and a ton of information about what's being built. But it's an open process. Think about it like Ethereum. You're familiar with ERCs, right? Ethereum requests for comments, which led to like ERC20 and stuff like that. There's a similar process in Morpheus called MRCs. And so there have been 50 plus proposals for how to improve Morpheus. So go into GitHub, you can see for yourself, everything is built in public, right? There's no formal team. Like, anybody can propose something. And usually the filter is like, okay, go and build it. Like, nobody's your personal army. Nobody's going to build it for you. Like, you have to have more than an idea. It's like, oh, I know how to build this. I know how to implement this. So yeah, I mean, that's what I like about it so much. Like, you could be a capital person, a coder, a compute provider, come and build something, and there aren't a lot of barriers and there's no bureaucracy. So go for it.
Wow, a very cool future. Well, let's continue building the future of on-chain AI.